approach, a different approach. We became the model for the country to have alternatives to detention. And what we said was that was a better way to get the attention of these young people. And we have at least 7 of these alternatives that I'm talking about right now. And let me explain how one of them might work so you can get the flavor of it. Let's say a young person is caught because that young person has stolen a television set. And the young person stole the television set so the young person could sell the television set and get drugs with it and continue the pursuit of drugs. Well, in the past, what would happen is they would catch that young person, lock that young person up in the detention center or someplace like that, and the young person would encounter somebody in that detention center, and that person would say, hey buddy, how did you happen to get caught on the sale of that television set? And that person would say, well, I stole the television set in Chicago, and I went down to a street in Chicago, and I sold it, and they caught me. And the person in the detention center would say, well, stupid, that's why you got caught, because you sold the television set in the same place that you stole the television set. You see what's happening. They go to jail in the detention center, and they become better criminals with that kind of advice. We said, no, that's not the way to do it. So here's what we said. Person steals the television set. The person gets arrested and detained. We don't lock that person up. We said, no, pal, it doesn't work like that. First of all, you got to go over to your neighbor whose television set you stole, and you're going to apologize for stealing that television set. And then next, you're going to go down to the local car wash, and you're going to work in that car wash until you make enough money to buy her another television set. And then we're going to have you signed up for a drug rehabilitation program so we stop the habit that you have, so that you then can qualify for a scholarship to go back to school, or you can do something to make you a positive citizen again. It's called balanced and restorative justice. That's the approach that we take with young people here in Cook County now. Now, it takes some courage to do that. The judge who decides to rehabilitate that young person who stole the television set has to face the former owner of that television set. And that former owner is not happy about that young person not being detained initially, until you tell the former owner, look, if all we do is lock this young person up, he's going to steal your television set again. But if we can rehabilitate that person and stop him from wanting to steal television sets, then your television set and everybody else's television set is safe, and he becomes a better citizen. Programs like that take some courage. Judges get criticized. They get threatened. Retention is just around the corner. What will happen when they step forward with cases like that? Well, we have additional judges who work on tough matters. You heard Cheryl Whitaker mentioned a few moments ago, and you heard that she's with the Community Trust, and she is. And the Community Trust does a lot of marvelous things, but we just lassoed them into helping us with foreclosures. foreclosures in Cook County. You might be interested to know why we've done that. Give you an idea. Foreclosures back in 2005 were approximately 16,000. And yes, 16,000 people losing their home, a catastrophe. But in 2009, last year, not 16,000, 47,000. This year we're on track for 50,000. And so we wondered, what could we do to help people who are going through that process? And you know what some people say, well, they signed on the dotted line, they knew they didn't have the money, they didn't read what they signed. Don't worry about them, Judge. Let the law apply. Well, no, we say that's not what a good society does. We know that these people purchased those homes because that was to be their most valuable asset. Home was the castle. And now we're trying to do everything we could do to save those homes here in Cook County. And we discovered that about 100 people were being summoned to come to court every day in each one of 10 judges' courtrooms. 1,000 people. And only 10% of them were coming to court. And if they came to court, in some instances, we could save their homes. But they didn't know that there was a way to do that. And sometimes they were embarrassed about it. They were ashamed about it. They didn't want to come and say, well, no, I didn't read what I signed. And so we've embraced a program here in Cook County, which you'll be hearing more about on radio and television and from the Community Trust, that says, we know if you can't pay your mortgage, that you can't pay to hire a lawyer. You can't pay to get some good advice. You can't really mediate your cases like you should be able to. So we in Cook County are providing free of charge, counseling free, attorneys free, mediation services free, and we're going to go into every community through the Community Trust to let everybody know that this is for them and that there's no reason for them not to show up in court every day. That's another example of what Cook County is all about. I could go on and talk about what's going on in domestic violence courtrooms. And you do know we have a model domestic violence court here, the first in the country, where we can get assistance not only for the victims of domestic violence, but also for the perpetrators to stop the cycle of violence. We treat them like they are humane, and we treat them like they should be treated. I could talk to you about the probate court, where we can now reunite grandparents with grandchildren because the mothers and fathers are hooked on drugs and have abandoned the children. The guardianship system is working well. I could talk to you about First Municipal, where the contract cases are heard by the thousands and the personal injury cases are heard by the thousands. I could talk to you about the law division, where we have similar matters going on where courage is necessary. But I know we don't have time for all of that. Let me put this in perspective by reciting an old poem that I found a long time ago. And it puts in perspective what I'm trying to say. It says, wealth lost, something lost. Honor lost, much lost. Courage lost, all is lost. The judges in Cook County are facing daunting tasks all the time. And I tell them this. I tell them this story. They've heard it 1,000 times, but let me share it with you. There was once a great theologian who was addressing a crowd like this, and there were all kinds of talented, capable people. There were the Dawn Clark Netches present, and the Kwame Raouz present, the members of the clubs like this city club were present, and this theologian was addressing this august group. And after the theologian got through with his remarks, one of these talented, capable people, like the examples that I just gave you, came up and said to the theologian, you seem to know your Bible very well. That person from the audience said, can you tell me the one sentence that God used most often in the Bible? And this great theologian thought about it for a moment, and he said, well, it must be the one passage that says, be kind to widows and orphans and strangers. It must be that passage. And this person from the audience said, no, Pastor, not even close. He said, the one sentence that is mentioned most often in the Bible is, don't be afraid. Sometimes it's put this way, have no fear, or fear not. And the theologian said, well, let me go home and check this out. And the theologian found out that more than 80 times that phrase is used. God said it to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. He said it to each one of his prophets. And he told prophets to go and say it to the people. He said it to Joshua after Moses had died. Don't be afraid. Be of good courage. I am with you. Jesus said it to each one of his disciples. And I say it to the judges. Don't be afraid. Thank you.
I say this with some trepidation. If you want to ask a question of the Chief Judge and sign your name, all the judges are excused, all the would-be judges are excused. Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, God bless you. Oh, God bless you. Oh, not a question. Dorothy Brown, stand up and say hello to everybody. All right, Judge Evans, you opened up a can of worms here. This is a question from Father Ryan. City Club plays hardball. Why can't there be cameras in by 26 to California and to the branch courts instead of... Father, why don't you say your question?
26 in California so that there isn't the necessity to transport defendants or prisoners at 26 in California to the various district courtrooms throughout the county, and I'm sure the idea is to save money that way. Well, two or three things. First of all, there's a general rule about cameras in courtrooms that is enunciated by the Supreme Court. We don't have a rule that permits us to have cameras in courtrooms in a general way. I don't know whether that will be the law forever. I would not have a problem with cameras in courtrooms in general. I think the public would get a better idea of what goes on in their courtrooms, and they would understand that courtrooms are not conducted like the Judge Judy or the TV version of it. So I don't have a problem in general with cameras in courtrooms. The particular question, though, has to do with a defendant's right to face his accuser. And that's a foundation, that's a part of our system. And if, for example, the defendant had no interest in facing an accuser or going to court, and the defendant wanted to stay in 26 in California and avoid being transported, I'd have no problem with that. But, Father, if the defendant, who often at that point is presumed innocent, wishes to have his day in court, I think we have to treat him like he is innocent and give him his opportunity to face his accuser or to be in court that we promise him he's got a right to do. And that's why I would oppose forcing him to stay in 26 in California, forfeiting his right to face his accuser.
Maybe your question. From State Senator Kwame Raoul, who works in a place